So let me introduce you our guests. So there will be two sessions. For the morning session, we will listen to a lecture given by Professor Renata Legenzova from Vytautas Magnus University, and she will deliver you a speech, give you a lecture titled Costing Products and Services, a Small Company Perspective. And for the second session, which will start at 1:30, Associate Professor Asta Gegalini will also give you a lecture titled Household Financial Management Decisions. So let's start with our first guest. So please welcome to the stage. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you for coming. No need to applaud because I didn't start speaking yet. Maybe you will not like it. Okay, so firstly, it's really a pleasure to be here in Istanbul, and it's our first time in your university, but I hope it will be a very good experience for us and for you, okay? So let me start my presentation, and with the presentation, maybe as usual in Erasmus Exchange, I will start with a little bit about our university, which is not sure, okay, working. Okay. Want me to hold it my answers? Okay, that's interesting experience. Let me a little bit adjust it. I don't know if you can hear me now. Is it okay with the sound? Not okay? Oh, perfect. Okay, good. So good morning again. And how many of you are local students and how many of you are international students? Local students, let's say it this way. Local. And then the remaining international. Okay, you know, because usually when we go to any country for exchange, it's always a question, where is your university from and what is the country you are from? And well, we say, you know, we're a basketball country. I don't know if any of you like basketball, but Lithuania, Kaunas, the city where I came from, we came from, is very famous for that. So if any one of you is interested in basketball, it's always a good topic to talk after the presentation, okay? And actually, in our university, we also have a study program, master study program with EuroLeague. And with that, you know, basketball, amazing basketball league, we develop business managers, let's say, for sports organizations. But let me start with the presentation short of university. So it's Vytautas Magnus University. Vytautas Magnus was one of our grand dukes in Lithuania in the Middle Age, in sometime like around the age of Suleiman the Magnificent here. So just, you know, and from that we proudly bear his name in our university. So in general, Lithuania is a very small country. We checked it's bigger than Istanbul in the square footage, but not in population. Currently, the population of Lithuania is a bit less than 3 million of entire country, yeah, not of the city. So it's not big, but it's very nice and green. And as you see, this is a map of Lithuania, and then we have capital Vilnius. By the way, we have direct flights to Vilnius with Turkish Airlines 2 times a day, so it's really easy connection. Official language, we have Lithuanian language, not Russian, although many people think so, but yes, we were used to be a part of Soviet Union. Currently, as you see, population is 2.8 million, and majority of us are Catholics, Romanian Roman Catholics, but usually we joke. The first religion in Lithuania is basketball. And you know, you can talk to anyone about that in Lithuania. Okay, our currency is euro, as you see, and we have a parliamentary democracy. With the glasses and this, it's not comfortable, but I will manage. Okay. Talking about Kaunas, Kaunas is where we came from. It's the second largest town in Lithuania, and it's about 100 kilometers from the capital, easy connection. We also have an airport, and city is located very nicely geographically, mainly in the center of the country. Climate, it's quite warm for us here because we came from -1, -2, but at this time it could be up to -20, definitely like that in January, February. In summer it is warm, not hot as here, but we have 4 seasons usually. So it's like if you come to visit us, you really should look at the temperatures. Now, about the university, it's Vytautas Magnus University, one of the Artes Liberales University, a model which we brought from the United States, which means that our students have a lot of freedom of choice, what courses to choose and what subjects to study. University was established in 1922. I don't know if it's old if compared to yours. Then it was closed for some time during Soviet times, and then it was reopened in 1989. From that time, we are, one of the big 5 universities in Lithuania, and it's Artes Liberales, as I told, an approach usually taught by, adopted by American universities. We really are a global university with a lot of international students and a lot of international cooperation. As you see, more than 30 languages taught, including Turkish language, which is available to any of our students. And we really have a very modern campus in the city center, similar to yours, yeah? Okay, as you see, very shortly, it's about 8,500 students. Decent size for Lithuania with 2.8 million population, but I think it's small even for Istanbul, not for Turkey. Yeah, I will not go through all the numbers. I see it's not that interesting for the students, most probably. But we definitely have Erasmus exchange, so you are really welcome to come to university, including to our faculty. We have quite many international students in the faculty. That could be up to 20%, depending from time to time, but really a lot of them. So bachelor's studies as well as master studies. We also have a PhD program in the faculty in economics and in management, and usually a couple of international students are always, studying in that PhD program. Okay, so I will skip that maybe, and this is the building of our faculty. It really looks like that. It was brand new and opened just a year ago. Modern libraries, modern technologies, and a lot of business contacts. This is what we are proud of. The city surrounding, it's also very modernized, and Kaunas is quite, modernized and vibrant city for young people. In our faculty, we have 4 bachelor study programs, and then we have, as you see, 9 master study programs. So basically, the faculty is more graduate studies oriented, but comparing the amounts of students, it's both bachelor and master students, more or less the same amount. Still a bit more of master students, and the master programs, those are, we call it full-time programs in finance, international economics, marketing and commerce, advertising management, and strategic business management. We also have a few executive programs, including the one, as I told you, with sports business MBA with EuroLeague, and some of them also for mid-level managers. And 2 doctoral programs I already presented. Faculty is rather small, which is about 1,000 students. It is not small in terms of size in the university, but again, if compared to you, it's much smaller. And as you see, currently we have about 15% of international students. And finally, let me maybe shortly introduce myself, and I will go to the topic. So basically, I am teaching at university for more than 20 years now. Time is flying by very quickly. I always concentrated in my teaching on accounting topics, so I teach financial accounting, managerial accounting. Recently, I mostly concentrate on international accounting, meaning international financial reporting standards. Does it say anything to you, accounting? Have you had the course? Okay, good. Good. I also have a few courses in other areas like risk management and sports economics and finance, but this accounting is still my area of expertise. I'm also quite engaged in supervisory and regulatory bodies back in Lithuania with Ministry of Finance. Currently, I am the head of National Auditors Qualification Examination Committee, and also for more than 10 years, I am the person who is developing Lithuanian national accounting standards. It's a group of professionals, so we work in that area to develop regulation in Lithuania. That's it about me. I don't know if you have any questions about university, about possibilities to come for Erasmus. You're very welcome. Did you guys understand anything? Okay, good. So I'm done with the introduction, and we agreed that as you will have a section in the afternoon, my colleague will show you a short video about Lithuania. So my was a bit shorter one, and then maybe nicer movie later on. So now I would like to move to the topic of my lecture. And I chose to discuss about costing products and services from a perspective of small company. Definitely, I will not be able to explain everything. Yeah? And then I will ask you, I will start with a question. What is accounting? Do you know what is accounting? Have you had I know that you had the course, but do you remember what that is? What do they do? What do we do in accounting? Or what do you do in accounting? Create an art? Make a product? You calculate, yeah? Definitely, yes, very good, yeah. Your colleague said that it's all about, money, counting money. And that's true. Accounting is all about, collecting information from business activities and recording that information. At the end, to know what is the situation of the company. Did they make profit? Did they spend cash? Did they collect more cash than they spent? Do they have sufficient amount of assets? Do they have to borrow some money maybe because they don't have sufficient funding to fund their operations next year, and so on. I will not talk generally about accounting. What I decided to talk today is I decided to talk how to cost products and services. So then the question is, did you have any course where you had to calculate what is a cost to produce this glass of water? How much does it cost? Can you tell me how to calculate that? Did you study that? Because that will allow me understanding how much I should go into details, and maybe you know everything already. Had you had the course, had you have a course where you calculate cost of products? Some of you do. Usually there are three answers. Yes, no, and I don't care. Which one is for you? Yes, no, or I don't care. Okay, let me go. And please, if you want to ask something, just show me that you want me to discuss a few things. With that microphone, I cannot hear you very well, so if you show a sign, then I will try to listen to you, okay? To start with, if you take any textbook where you read about calculating costs of products and services, usually those textbooks are American, and usually they are for large companies. But looking into the, let's say, European Union economy, and I truly sure that it's also in Turkey, majority of businesses are small. For example, in Lithuania, statistics say that we have about 93% of companies which are small and very small. Here, behind me, you have a definition of the sizes of companies according to European Union regulation. So in European Union, if you look at what is micro company and small company, it's not that small. Actually, it is not that small, but still, this is 90% and more of all companies in the economy, which means that it's quite challenging for us as teachers to teach how to calculate costs of products and services, not from the textbooks, American textbooks, which are for large corporations, but rather for smaller companies. And throughout my practice, teaching students and consulting, companies on how to do that, because I always get some, inquiries from the companies. Could you help us to and show us how to calculate costs of products and services, how to develop a budget, how to analyze our data, what should we improve in order to be more profitable or to be profitable at all. So that is, that requires a little bit different approach from a small company perspective. And what is the difference between small and large companies? So firstly, we have to look into how those small companies do business. Usually what happens is that it's like three-person company, a family business, where, let's say, starting or founder of the company, let it be, I don't know, a person, a man, yeah? He most probably is a manager, and then a cleaner, and then maybe a driver, and another person works in manufacturing and then does advertising in the afternoon, yes. So they're multitasking, which means that it's a mix of responsibilities and activities people do in that company. Another, maybe feature of smaller companies is that usually starters or owners, they have an idea, and they decide to develop and to establish a business, but then it takes some time for them to gain knowledge and expertise how to do that business. And usually costing is one of the areas where they kind of know how to do calculations, but at the end it appears that they could have done it better, because they didn't know the theory, maybe they didn't know the requirements, they didn't consider what is the most efficient and useful information for them to make decisions. It's a big topic, even talking about costing. I took one aspect of it to present to you as an aspect which I usually start to talk with, my students and also some fresh entrepreneurs, and I hope you will like it, okay? To start with, when you look at the accounting system, there are different types of accounting usually small businesses do. First of all, tax accounting, yeah? So in every country there are some taxes. So all companies are obliged to pay taxes. And then it's a must, they have to do tax accounting. If they don't, governmental authorities, they will come quickly and close the company, or put some fines, and that will be a burden, a really financial burden for the companies. Then another branch of accounting is so-called financial accounting, and the result of financial accounting is financial statements. Profit and loss statement, balance sheet, you need those, first of all, to go to a bank and take a loan. You need those to show to your owners if you have some investor, because those owners will be willing to have some dividends from the company. Yeah? So this is where financial accounting helps you to calculate what was your performance, profit and loss throughout the year, and what is your financial position, meaning what are your assets, liabilities, what is the equity, can you pay the dividends. Yeah? So that's financial accounting. Then we have managerial accounting, accounting for decision making. Okay, so what are my costs? Do I deeply know what are my costs? Can I cut some costs somewhere? What happens if the next year I will start producing more? Will my costs per unit decrease or increase? What is my budget? Do I do budget? Do I really budget my activities for the future? Do I know how much I will produce and sell next year? How much that will cost for me to purchase, resources and to maybe I need to hire additional people, to do the business for me, and so on. And then, so it's like calculating costs, doing budget. Then we can do variety of analysis. A customer approached us and asked us to sell 100 items of water, but for twice cheaper price. Can we do it? That is what management accounting is about. You do calculations, and then you decide, can you afford yourself to sell it twice cheaper, or maybe that's still profitable for you. And then in the middle, as you see, there is cost accounting in red. This is what I will talk today, because cost accounting, it is related to all other branches of accounting. The aim of cost accounting is to calculate how much this product costs. And it seems, well, what is an issue? A package, a cap, and water. It's not that easy. Why? Because someone had to produce it. So it's labor. Then most probably you needed some packaging line, so it's equipment which has depreciation, but if you have equipment, it means you have to have electricity, and most probably you have some production plant, so those are additional costs. So all that has to be included and somehow into cost of this product. It's like a recipe for your cake, you need to know what to put in that cake. Why do you need that information? First of all, you need that information to make decisions for the future. Maybe our product costs us too much and we cannot sell it in the market. It's not competitive. So we need to cut costs. That's managerial decision. But then we need to know the cost of the product because we have to account for our inventory in the balance sheet for financial accounting. Yeah? Then we need to know the cost of our inventory because at the end we have to pay taxes. Yeah, we sell the product, deduct costs, and that's our profit from which we pay taxes. But then if we calculate our costs in a wrong way, most probably we pay too much or too little taxes. So that relates to any area of accounting. Costing is rather important aspect in a company. And I have to say that it really depends, well, I will start this way. There are some requirements in financial accounting, internationally, in Lithuania, in other European countries, in international standards. I'm pretty sure they are more or less the same in Turkey as well. You have to account for your cost of your products and services as inventory, and then once you use that inventory, you transfer it to the expenses, yeah? Cost of goods sold, let's say, in the profit and loss statement. So it's everywhere in the world like the same. So that gives me a frame what I have to do. Also, another requirement in accounting says that once you calculate costs of products and services, it's not enough to include materials. Cap, package, and water. You also have to include other costs like labor and manufacturing overhead or indirect costs. From my experience, almost 70% of starting, like young companies, just established companies, they only calculate cost of products as raw materials. And they think that it's very cheap for them to produce, let's say, this product because it's just water, packaging, and cap, yeah? It's more costs. And currently, in many companies, more than 50% of all the costs those companies have, those are indirect costs, meaning something they incur for more than one product or maybe not only direct materials. So in financial accounting, you have to account for direct and indirect costs to value, to measure the cost of your product. From managerial accounting perspective, it really depends how you do your business. Some time ago, I had a seminar for 10 companies. There were 10 companies in a room. All 10 companies produced furniture. Basically, tables and shelves, so-called hard furniture. And once we did analysis how they manufacture their products, we wrote 10 different formulas how they calculate costs. 10 companies producing more or less the same product calculated their cost of product very differently. Why? Because some of the companies, they did mass production for IKEA. You have IKEA here, yes? So they did mass production for IKEA. The only product they had, it was a small shelf, and they produced thousands and thousands of those very highly, automatized production. Another company at their site, they produced very custom-made, high-end furniture from natural oak, where they even made their, oak manually by hand. From the tree to the final product, everything was done by hand. So do you imagine? It's a table, one table and another table, but those tables have different features, different quality, and also different production. So that's why, to calculate costs of products and service, it's always about looking how you do manufacturing. Okay, I usually do this 5-step analysis explaining to students, but also to companies, so how to calculate cost of products and services. So first of all, step number 1, it's always go to the company and check how they do their business. When I go to companies, like company invited me a few, now half a year maybe ago, they asked me, could you come to our company and check if we calculate our costs correctly? Maybe you have something for us to advise. And you come to the company, there is an accountant waiting for you at the gate, saying, let's go to the accounting department, we have coffee for you, a lot of papers, and you will review it. And I always say, no, let's go and have a tour around the company. Why? Because first of all, I want to know, do they have one building where they have maybe manufacturing on the first floor and then administration on the second floor? So that's one building, but then costs have to be separately for manufacturing and non-manufacturing. Yeah? And then another question, how do they do manufacturing? How many products they have? Do they produce just the water? Then it's quite simple. But what if they produce 10 different types of water, different bottles, yeah? Different, maybe some with tastes, maybe sparkling, non-sparkling. So how do they do it? Do they have a single room or plant where they produce all their products? Or maybe they have separate plants where they produce different products? Because for calculation of costs, that's important. For me, it is relevant to know, what are the resources used. And that's the next step, to understand, okay, what are the resources required to produce a product? I pretty know what are resources required for this product. But if you need to produce a fuel for, I don't know, airspace shuttles, do you know what is production? I don't. I don't know how they produce fuel for like airspace shuttles. Because I don't know even what is the chemical, components on that, and etc. So this is why you have to really understand how you produce your product. Do you use manual labor, meaning do you have people who maybe close the caps and use some heating to close it? Or maybe it's an automated line which is used. Okay, first step, go around the company, check how they do business, what are the resources, understand the differences in production of the products. The next step, I have more slides. Now, according to financial accounting, which, remember, costing is in the middle of financial accounting and managerial accounting. So it's not only what managers want, but it's also what is required by regulation to do financial statements. In financial accounting, there is a compulsory regulation, what is classification of activities. And in financial accounting, which kind of becomes compulsory for companies, and I have to say from my experience, smaller companies always take this approach because this way they can do accounting one time, both for themselves and also for reporting. So here, as you see, there are main activities, production, providing services or sales, depending what is the type of business company is in. So that's the main activities. Usually in your main activities, you produce a product, you produce a service, and you earn revenue there. So main activities usually are revenue earning and then some money spending activities. And then there are some other activities like general administrative, how to manage your company. So that's a manager with salary and most probably office and a car if needed. It's accountant there. It's, I don't know, people in some other departments, but except marketing and sales, because marketing and sales usually that is required to show separately. Yeah, you have to show that separately. Okay, and then there are some financial and investment activities which usually are not part of the costing. The next step which you have to go in the process, a 5-step process I showed you, you have to choose what is your cost object. For what you want to calculate costs of goods manufactured or services provided. Usually in smaller companies, that's a product or service. Last afternoon, we went to a coffee shop and had a cup of coffee. So what is a cost object in that coffee shop? Yeah? It could be a cup of coffee, but what coffee? Is it an espresso, Turkish coffee, cappuccino? Do you need to calculate costs separately? Or maybe it's sufficient for you to calculate average cost for espresso, cappuccino, or Turkish coffee, because you say, for me it's enough. I will know on average, because there are not that many differences in resources I use, maybe the taste is different, etc. Company needs to decide. The more cost objects they have, the more complicated the calculation system becomes. Because then when you need to write a formula not for average cost of coffee, but a cost for espresso, a cost for cappuccino, a cost for, let's say, Turkish coffee, maybe tea, maybe something else. So if you write a lot of formulas for you, it means it makes process a bit more complicated. Can you do it? Yes. I usually advise companies to do it because most probably you will write that formula once. Later on, you take data, you plug in the data, you get the numbers. So it's all about the first time, and for small companies, it's about knowing what to do. So cost, generally, what is cost? Cost is amount paid for resources you used. And as I said, it's step number 1. Once you know what are the resources required, then you know, okay, I need resources, let's say, for this product. Then I can start analyzing, so what are the costs? Yeah, resources used for that product. And there are different classification of costs. If you had the course, I pretty sure that you know those different classifications. Today I take, sorry, it's not seen very well, but the second from the bottom, it's about calculating costs of good manufacturing. Basically, all the costs are split into direct and indirect costs. And that is one of the important analysis. Have you heard about direct, indirect, calculating costs, cost allocations? Professors definitely know, but what about students? Yes, no, I don't care. Which is the answer? No? No, some know. Majority don't care. Okay. Okay, so, well, usually, when I start doing seminar for people, like I go to business, a small business, there are 5 people, none of them usually know about accounting or finance that much, and they say, well, you're talking boring thing, it's not important to us. It is important. Why? Because depending how you calculate your costs of product or service, then you price it accordingly. And once you price it accordingly, then it shows your competitive situation in the market. If you say, it's in Turkish liras for us a bit tricky, hundreds of amounts of money, but still, But what is an average price for espresso, let's say here? Let's say 50, yeah? Okay, thank you. So, if you say it's 50, But once, if you do your calculations of costs incorrectly, maybe you say, I cannot sell for 50, my costs are 50, I will sell it for 60, but the shops around sell it for 50. Will you get customers? Most probably not. So the issue is not that your product is not good, your pricing is not good, but your pricing is not good because your calculation of costs is not proper. So that, it's like a chain of the decisions and reactions you get. So that's why, as I say, it's really about your competitive situation, and also it's about your as owner's earnings. If you do pricing incorrectly, okay, I cannot afford myself to charge more than 50 because everyone does. My profit is very small. But then most probably you are not earning the money you had to if you did calculations correctly, because maybe your one product is underpriced or overpriced if comparing to then another one. Okay, so as I said, there are different possibilities how to do classifications, but today I will go to the one with the direct and indirect costs. And of course, first of all, to calculate cost of products and services, all the costs have to be split into two broad groups, manufacturing costs and non-manufacturing costs. If I need to calculate how much does it cost to produce this product, I should not include how much I pay to advertise, let's say, that production, because it's not manufacturing costs. But I have to include the materials, the labor of people if I need to produce it. I need to include different resources like production line, maybe like utilities, heating, the room where I do production. All those costs, they have to go to the cost of goods produced. And as you see, manufacturing costs, those are usually direct materials. Whatever it's placed here, and you normally can clearly see what kind of materials you need for that. Then it's direct labor, if that is direct labor, yeah, and manufacturing overhead. Let me talk a little bit about the labor. Yeah? Remember in the beginning of the lecture I told you that in small companies, in just established companies of 5 to 10 people maybe, multiple people are doing multiple things. Yeah, I could be an owner and also a manager and then a cleaner and then a cooker. Whatever I need, I do because it's my business. So then it becomes quite challenging to understand, so what are my costs of goods manufactured if when I need it, I come to cook, when needed, I go and clean, and when I need it, I do advertising, let's say. So that's one of the challenges we usually deal with small companies, how to separate costs into the proper categories. I prepared an example. Let me see with the time. What is the time? I don't see. I still have time, yeah? I still have time. So I will try to show you one Excel example, how that could make a difference, classification of costs into proper categories, okay? But as I said, you go to business if you are invited as a consultant. Make analysis, what is the product produced? You definitely have to calculate cost for that product. Then once you do calculations, you have to separate, okay, what costs are required for manufacturing and what are not manufacturing. What is definitely not manufacturing is advertising, sales activities, general administrative expenses like the manager, the accountant, legal department if you have this, and so on. Okay, what's next? Once I already discussed a little bit about classification of costs, I tried to separate usual items of the costs and group them into categories. So as you see here, we have, first of all, on the bottom, costs related to marketing, general administrative, sustainability costs, for example. It's a very big trend nowadays to have business sustainable and spend something on social responsibility, on something. Again, that's not manufacturing, that goes into different categories, yeah? Then we have in manufacturing costs, materials, labor, and overhead. I repeat it again. And then there could be some other costs which we spend initially in order to establish the product, research and design, for example. We had to develop those costs according to accounting regulation. they will go to expenses immediately, majority of them. But you still want to calculate them, you still want to know them, because if you start producing a product and selling a product, for you as an entrepreneur, it has to pay back. You still have to recover all the costs, not only the current costs, you need to produce the product, to advertise the product, but also initial costs which you had to spend once you were developing it, choosing which packaging is the best, what taste of the product you want to have, and so on. So if I add all the costs together, those will be full costs, yeah? That's the biggest category. Anyway, your selling price has to be higher than full costs. Do companies calculate full costs every day? They don't. Why? Because it's not in line with financial accounting. In financial accounting, requirements are different, so are in tax accounting. Yeah? But from time to calculate your full costs, this is very important for the entrepreneurs, because this way they will know, okay, in a normal way of business, my selling price should not be smaller or lower, yeah? Okay, and then for daily accounting, for daily financial accounting, but also for decision making, it is important to calculate manufacturing costs. In financial accounting, that is required. So companies have to do it, yeah? And in financial accounting is required that costs of goods manufactured, I repeat it, but I want, it's not that I don't have something to say, but I really want you to, to acknowledge that. It's really important to have materials, labor, and overhead, other costs like utilities, heating, depreciation included in the cost of your product or service. Okay, that one I already discussed. Oh, I can stop here. Now, is it all the same? Does it depend on the product how I do my calculations? Yes, it depends on the product how you do your calculations. Let's say that you, I don't know, what could be, okay, you decided to produce furniture. You have some skills in producing furniture, but then you can decide, will you go for custom-made furniture? You wait for the order of customer, you design the furniture, and then you produce it and sell it. So that will be one of the type product, yeah? And every time you get a customer, you have to decide with your customer how your product will look like. And then your other choice could be that you have a good connections with a big chain of hotels. So you say, I will produce a small tables for them. I get an order, I produce 1,000 of exactly the same units. Maybe 1,000 and 1,000 every year of the same units. And then you still produce a table, but your production will be different. Depending on how frequently you produce product, how your product is different from another product you produce, you will choose different costing systems. Job costing, process costing, ABC costing, those are fancy words for different costing systems. In my experience, it's always the same decision companies have to make. If you have direct and indirect costs, and you will have direct and indirect costs for any product, then the question is how to actually allocate indirect costs. Because in your calculations, in your company, if a cost is direct, it means that your accounting system has to trace that cost to a product. If I produce this water, and different types of waters, most probably this cap and this packaging is only for this product. Because other bottle of water is in a bit of a different format. Direct cost means that the cost is traced to your product. Companies use different technologies nowadays how to trace direct cost to the product. For example, bar scanners. Every time they take a material, they scan it. Sometimes they ask employees to do a detailed records. I took a piece of material, I wrote it down in accounting system. 100 meters of some fabric, I will use it for scarves and that particular scarf. So that again makes my cost direct costs. The tricky thing is with indirect costs, or manufacturing overhead. Because in this case, as you see here, indirect costs have to be allocated, meaning we have to split those costs among the products. Let's imagine here that, there are we got hungry and we decided to order some pizza. There are a few possibilities. Each of you order your own pizza. Yeah, and you pay with your card, and then we get 100 of pizzas with the names, and then we are shouting, okay, who is Renata? This is your pizza. What happens if we have two the same names and different pizzas? But that's, these are direct costs. Why? Because once you order, you know exactly what you want. That's direct costs. Yeah? But there is another possibility. University decided to pay for pizzas. I do not make promise, yeah, but let's imagine. Okay, so and then we voted and we decided there will be two types of pizzas. Let's say margarita with just cheese and then some pizza with meat. And what happened later on? But then they brought us pizzas, and then university says, okay, now we have to. There are students from different study programs, so now we have to split the costs into different programs. But how they split? Yeah, I don't know what are the names of your study programs, but let's say economics and let's say there is management, yeah? So they paid 1,000, well, I just take random number, 1,000 of Turkish lira for pizzas, yes, and then they say, okay, we have to split it between students of economics and then students of management because those two programs have different budgets. How do we do it? In half? Equally? Maybe. Maybe not based by number of students who are in the auditorium. If one program has more students, they get more costs. If another program has another, maybe, and so there are different possibilities how to split costs. From my practical experience, this is one of the most difficult, but also one of the most important decisions companies have to make, especially small ones when we start producing multiple products. And let me show here you a few examples. Yeah? But I kind of, took a perspective of a lecture, so I go very, systematic way how to do calculations. Let's say we have to calculate cost of product. What are the four steps decision-making process here? First of all, I really have to assure myself, do I really calculate costs for this particular product? Yes. Okay, let's go further. What are my direct costs? A cap, a packaging, some water. I have to calculate those in my accounting system, how to account for those in my accounting system in a way that at the end I push the button and those direct costs are calculated for me. Or maybe manually, someone is calculating with calculator, but still. And then the next question is, what are my indirect costs and how do I allocate my indirect costs between this product and 3 different types of bottles of water I use in my I produce in my manufacturing. And then I add total costs, and here is my cost of goods manufactured. Allocation of manufacturing overhead requires me to know a few things. First of all, it requires me to know, so what are those indirect costs which I have to allocate? Let's go back to the example of pizza. Do we have to allocate cost of pizza? Or maybe there is also delivery cost, which you also have to allocate. Or maybe there is also some taxes which are on top of it, so we have to allocate those as well. Yeah? Then it could be the situation, then we say, okay, let's do it this way. We allocate costs of pizza based on number of students because it has to be fair. More students we have, the more cost we allocated. But we will allocate taxes and delivery equally, half-half, to 2 departments. Why? Why not? We can agree on those things. In a company, that's important to understand. What are my indirect costs? Should I allocate them as one big piece, a big amount, or should I cut them in smaller pieces and allocate separately? So that's the first question we have. What was my overhead pool? What is the amount of overhead or indirect costs? And Do I do it in a single unit or split it in smaller subunits, which I do use for allocation? The next question is, yes? Yes. It's tax accounting in a country might be different. I can talk about European Union. So, but I believe it's more or less everywhere, and knowing that Turkey is planning to enter European Union should be more or less the same. The costs of goods manufactured are tax deductible. So whatever you calculate as your cost of goods manufactured, at the end it will be deducted from your income to calculate profit tax. But with the allocation, cost allocation, let's say it's 1,000 Turkish liras I have to allocate. So usually if I put more in one product, it will be less in another product. So it's about like, the balancing where to put it. But yeah, that's tax deductible. Okay, let me go further. Let's say we decided that we have one or a few cost pools. Then the question is how to do allocation. Based on what should I split those costs? Yeah? And again, in manufacturing, we might have multiple products. Do we split costs equally between the products? Do we split costs based on number of units produced? Maybe based on materials used, maybe based on how much we pay for labor, maybe what are the activities we do for those products, and then, based on those activities. Even with the small and simple situations, it's always a decision which could influence final result. I have an example for you. I will show explaining how that could lead to different result. And then once you decide based on what you do allocation, then you calculate rate, some percentage maybe, or euros per or liras per unit or whatever, based on what you will do allocation, and then finally you do calculations. Let me maybe explain with example. Let's say we have a company which produces two products, product A and product B. I don't know, this water and that water, table and chair, that pizza and this pizza, whatever, multiple products in a production. We know that they currently produce exactly the same amount of product A and product B. So it's not that products, they produce a lot of one product and less of another one. We know that, sorry, it's in euro, I didn't translate in Turkish liras, but I think you all know the. And it doesn't matter how big is the amount, it's just explanatory example, yeah? So here we have like direct materials for one product, which is 10 euro, for another product is 80. It could be that's a small product and very big product. So that's why we do need different materials. Maybe one is plastic, another one is golden. So that's why materials are so expensive, even they are small ones, yeah? And then a similar thing for labor. Here in one we calculated it's 5 euro for labor. Maybe we pay a person to produce that one thing 5 euro, let's say, and for another product we pay a bit more. So from that perspective, as you see, product A, looking only into direct cost is 15 euro per unit, while product B is 110. Yeah? And then we also have 20,000 euro as the manufacturing overhead. What that could be? Electricity, premises, cleaning, depreciation of technologies, equipment we use, and so on, so on. Everything else you need in your manufacturing plant. It should not be advertising here. It should not be salary of the manager or salary of the accountant in this amount of 20,000. That is all related to manufacturing process, yeah? Okay, and then company says, in order to calculate cost of our product is not enough to have 15 for product A as direct costs. By the way, a lot of small companies in Lithuania do this mistake. They calculate materials, maybe plus labor, and say, this is the cost of our product. Yeah? What about 20,000? They write it off right away into expenses for the same period, which is not correct. And I will show you example how it could lead to very different decision-making and numbers, yeah? So here, what I'm trying to explain is that you take those 20,000 and you have to split between products A and products B to know what is the true manufacturing cost of the product. And let's say this time company said, okay, let's do that cost allocation based on number of units produced. Meaning every unit of product A or product B will get the same amount of manufacturing overhead, those indirect costs, okay? And as you see, I also have a decision here in that company, then whatever costs they calculate, they will add 100% markup, profit on top of the costs, and that will be the selling price. Why 100%? This is just an example. You can take 20% or 50% or 200%, depending on the situation. Okay, so what I'm trying to show here is now they do that allocation of costs. So in the beginning, they have 20,000, which they have to split between product A and product B. They will do it by number of units produced. For that, they need to know how many units they have for A, how many units they have for B, and what is the total number of units. So as you see here, the total number of units is 2,000, and equally for product A and product B. Why equally? That's my example. You can plug in different numbers. In this, what I do, I calculate that every unit gets 10 euro of manufacturing overhead. Meaning to produce a product, I will need labor, I will need materials, and some general expenses in manufacturing, which is 10 euro per product. In this situation, all products A gets 10,000, all products B gets also 10,000. What I can do then, I can calculate cost of goods manufactured. So here, for product A, 10 materials, 5 labor, plus an additional 10 for overhead, so it's 25 per unit. Accordingly, for product B, it's 120. Yeah, it's just, calculated. Then what I do, I add 100% on top of that, and that will be my selling price. So product A, according to this method, will sell for 50 euro, one or per product, yeah, and product B will sell for 240. Okay, now the job is done. Yeah, job is done. But then I know for the entrepreneurs, I always ask, but is it the right decision to do allocation by number of units produced? Is it really the right one, I have to say this is the most popular method for many of small companies. Like 75% at least of small companies do cost allocation like this, at least 75. I had an anecdotal situation in one of the companies. And that example showed me that it's not always a good approach to do it by number of units produced. There was a company producing handmade oak furniture, Lithuanian company producing for German buyers. Big tables, big office tables. A table could cost a couple thousand. They sold a table for a couple thousand because it really was top-level handmade product, yeah? And then they had some leftover wood. So they decided, we shall do something with the wood. So they decided to make those small trains, toy trains. You saw me. It was 15 years ago, so they were kind of starting that, small toys business in Lithuania. So they decided they will do small trains from leftover wood. 1 month, they did 2 tables and 100 of trains. And they decided they will use allocation based by number of units produced. Big table with a cost of 2,000 got 10 euro from my example, and the train, which has direct materials of 1 euro, got also 10 euro of manufacturing overhead. Was that fair? No. Was it smart? No. So usually, when your products are very different in size, different in costs, it's not wise to use number of units produced. In this case, you can go and choose different approach. For example, here, I say, how it would be different if company chose to allocate their indirect costs, not by number of units produced, but by direct labor hours. By direct labor hours, And in this case, what we needed to calculate, the company needed to calculate, so how many hours it was spent to produce all products A and all products B per period. Why it could be relevant? Maybe some products, let's say I make cakes. Some cakes, we make plain cakes. We just make them, do basic, decoration and sell it, but then there are wedding cakes, which I do a lot of decoration, which needs a lot of labor hours, yeah? So that would give me different products with different costs, and maybe I would need to allocate more manufacturing overhead because, those cakes which are highly decorated, they need more resources than the plain ones. Okay, so here what we calculated, or the data I have is that company uses 5,000 hours to produce all products A and 15,000 hours to produce all products B. I do allocation again. It's the same 20,000 we have to allocate, but now I do it according to the hours. So now it's 20,000 hours were used in total, which means every hour of labor gets €1 of manufacturing overhead. Every time we produce a product, we pay for labor, but we also allocate €1 for manufacturing overhead, which means all products B got €5,000 allocated out of 20, and the remaining 15 went to products B. What happens now to manufacturing costs? It's still the same direct costs, because those are direct, yeah? It's 15 for product A, materials plus labor, but now we only allocate €5 of manufacturing overhead. All products got for 5,000, 1,000 of products. So now product A became cheaper. Instead of 25, which was previously, now it costs 20 in our accounting system. But product B became more expensive. And now product B costs 125. Yeah, 125, which means that if we add 100% markup, now product A sells in the market for 40, and product B sells for 250. We still get 100% profit or markup on top of the costs. But as we added more costs or less costs to a product, our selling price is different. And now if you are operating in very competitive market, that could make a difference, that if you sell your product, let's say B, for 250, maybe it's too expensive for your customers. There is plenty of possibilities to buy a product for 240. So instead of selling your products, maybe at the end of the year, you will have them left in your warehouse because customers do not buy them. But you will see that with maybe product A, which you sell for 40, when in the market usually other competitors sell for, let's say, 45, you sell them right away, and you are happy that in the beginning of the month you sold everything you produced. But in a decision making, I always say, but you have to consider maybe your product A, which you sell for 40, is too cheap. If you sold it for 44, maybe, if compared to the prices in the market, you would take those additional €4 of profit because your product will sell, So again, coming back, costing products and services is not about calculating numbers. It's about decision making. It means that whatever you calculate, you will then, based on that, most probably you will have to calculate your selling price. That will give you profit. That will give you possibility to expand in the future, to pay dividend in the current period. Yeah, and that might affect viability and sustainability of the business as a whole. To summarize my lecture, and I will open one example for you to show, if it's okay. You're not sleeping yet. Some of you maybe, but we'll see. Yeah. Okay. So summarize. So how costing is different in small businesses? So first of all, I tried to highlight a few issues I saw from my practice. which I already tried to tell you a couple times throughout the lecture. First of them is that usually smaller companies only include direct material costs as costs of goods manufactured. Not three categories, materials, labor, and overhead, but just materials. What does it mean? It means that their product is kind of cheap. Yeah? Let me go back to the example. Oops, not here. Let me go back to the example. If they only include direct material costs as cost of goods manufactured, they would say, okay, product costs 10 euro for us. We add 100% markup. Then we sell product for 20. But in my calculations, 20 is exactly all the costs they need to manufacture a product. Wrong decisions could be made. Yeah, harmful decisions could be made, and then company will not be able to survive in the market. But of course, let's be reasonable. Companies will price their products not based on cost only. They will go and check what are the prices in the market. So they will try to price them according to the competition, which is another pricing methodology. Okay. But what happens then, but if you cost your products only with direct materials, and you have some inventory which stays unsold in your warehouse, you produced 1,000, you sold only 500. You have 500 left in your warehouse. If your costs includes only direct materials, which means your inventory is quite cheap, it means you accounted for much more expenses this year. Tax authorities will not be happy. They will treat it as you are trying to cheat with the taxes because you accounted for too much expenses that period. The next year, once you start selling products from your warehouse, they are very cheap. Even for a bank, you will show smaller profitability, which will not allow you to prove that you can take a higher, let's say, bank loan. Again, from that perspective, it's not attractive to the companies. If indirect costs are not allocated, another point, second point, which I also showed you example is that, okay, let's say that you are doing, you calculating your costs, including direct and indirect, but then you're not sure how to allocate your indirect costs. Yeah, you're not sure. Maybe by number of units produced, maybe by labor hours, maybe by labor price, costs, and etc. What could happen is that if you choose the wrong cost allocation method, that impacts profitability of your separate products. In my example, under one method, one product is cheaper, under another method, the same product is more expensive. Yeah. It's just, where you put more costs, in one product or another product. So that, it's not maybe that big deal, and that tax authorities will not have anything to say about that because it's a choice of company. They still account for all costs, but to put different costs on different products. Competitive situation in the market for the product will be an issue for you. And then the last point, which I could go on and on, is that usually in small companies, managers, owners underestimate strategic nature of costing decisions. It's truly one of the key aspects of, establishing your business, surviving for the first 3 years, and being able to grow on a long term, especially when companies start adding additional products to their product portfolio. And the bigger companies grow, the higher usually indirect costs they have. So that also becomes an issue, how to do recalculations properly. Okay, I still have 15 minutes if I see correctly. Is it right? Okay, so if I could, I would like to somehow put my glasses on and go to an example with a... wrong. Okay. But you cannot see, yeah, anything. I will keep it like this. I see a lot of movement in the auditorium. But if I could have a few more minutes of your patience, that's okay. It's technical stuff, and I don't know if I said if you feel it's relevant for you at this point. But okay, so one of the examples I prepared, I showed you already what is the importance of allocation, cost allocation to the final cost of the product, and then selling price, and most probably profitability of company. Now I have a bit different example. Let's say we have a company, small entrepreneurial company. There is like a few people working in that. Majority of them are family members, founding, grandfather of the company. Then he has 2 sons and a daughter who are working, and then there are some maybe other people involved. They produce one product, yes, but now they don't know which costs to include in the cost of goods manufactured. And I will try to enlarge a little bit for you the exercise, but there are basically items. Company has 1,400 units produced. They produced 1,400 units. They were able to sell 1,000. And as you know in accounting, that 1,000 which you sold will go to profit and loss statement. You calculate revenue, you calculate costs, you calculate what is the profit of the company at the end. And the remaining 400 will go to the balance sheet as inventory, and you have it in warehouse for the future. You can sell it later. Yeah. So now what company knows? The company knows that product sells for 100. They also know that they spend 50 euro direct materials, like, whatever we see, to produce a product. Then they know situation where they have some employees, and I put it basically by names because we have an owner, founder of the company, Peter Lang, who established the company. Now he's a manager, but he also works in manufacturing as quality controller. He develops some new designs of the product and so on. So he's about 30% of his time he dedicates to manufacturing. Now, this is a small company. They do not split kind of activities. So what they do is he gets salary, let's say, for 5,000 per month, and he does what is required. So 2 of his sons both get 4,000, and as you see, one of them is 60% time engaged in manufacturing, another about 40%. Yeah? And so on and so on. There are Elizabeth's daughter, she is only in accounting, so all the time is for administrative activities. And there are 3 employees in manufacturing, hired people who just do manufacturing activities. They also realize that they have they rented office and store. They don't do manufacturing there, just administrative stuff and sell products. They also have utilities. They pay for utilities like one bill for everything, store, office, and manufacturing plant. The manufacturing plant they have purchased some time ago, so they calculate depreciation for that. As you know, you buy assets and you depreciate it. This is how you put them into expenses. And then we have some miscellaneous different costs related to manufacturing. Also, they calculated they have cost of marketing and some costs related to administration. Maybe some, legal stuff and etc. Okay, now this is the situation. These are the costs we know. Now the question is, what is the cost of product? How should they calculate cost of product from the data they have? And this is a very common situation I'm getting from the starting entrepreneurs. These are my costs. Could you help us? Could you help me with numbers? How should I calculate? And it's always not to calculate for this month, but to set a system, to set somehow how to do that on a long term. Now, basically, we discussed 3 possibilities. First of all, the owner wants include only direct materials. He says, this works perfectly, I understand everything. Let's put everything else into expenses. What is the problem? And then I explain it's not required, it's not allowed by financial accounting, and then you will do information will not useful for your decision making. Let me show you, yeah? Another situation is how it is required. Then I have to look into costs, which are direct materials, direct labor, or whatever labor used in manufacturing, and all other costs, but only related to manufacturing, which means I cannot definitely include cost of marketing, I cannot definitely include cost of administrative costs, I cannot include, let's say, salary for Elizabeth Lang, who is not involved in manufacturing, not whatsoever, yeah? I cannot include rent of the office and store because it's not manufacturing, it's other activities. So that costs have to be kind of, sorted out. What is manufacturing, what is not, yeah? Or there is another possibility. Some companies opt for that, put all the costs as manufacturing costs. Let's say we're a small company, everything is the same. So let's put all the costs and let's so-called full costing approach. So in this case, let me run again, back, yeah. So in this case, I use with the calculated numbers. That's the data, and what I did in the beginning, I tried to calculate 3 different only costs of good manufactured. In case number 1, I will try to enlarge it. Maybe we will not be able to see, but at least you will see some of that, yeah. So there are 3 possibilities. First possibility, we calculate costs only direct materials. The last possibility, we will include all the costs as manufacturing costs, yeah? And another one, this is the middle column, is the proper way. Separate whatever is related and not related to manufacturing and do calculations. In all cases, as you see, direct materials are the same because it's definitely included. The first column, we don't have any additional costs. It means that costs of goods manufactured is 70,000 in total for only for direct materials, and then one product which we manufactured, and we manufactured 1,400, is 50 euro per one product. So every product costs us 50 euro, yeah? Another one, okay. Another one, what I did, I will not go into detailed explanations, but I can share the Excel file with you if you want later on, yeah? I kind of looked into separate item and I calculated that out of all labor costs, which would be 21,000, actually 11,000 are related to manufacturing because this is the scope of labor different people do in manufacturing. So this is included, yeah? Then rent of the store in the middle one is not included, but we have utilities, half of the utilities included because 50% of utilities go to manufacturing. That was assumption, yeah, or assessment. Depreciation is included, miscellaneous manufacturing costs included, marketing and administrative costs are not included. In this case, when I did calculations, cost per unit is 66.5. Direct materials 50, all manufacturing costs 66.5. And if I included all the costs, cost of product would be 85. That's calculations. So what? Now I do my profit and loss statement for the period, and I make modeling what will be the differences. I remind you that company produced 1,400, but they sold only 1,000, which means in my profit and loss statement, I can only include cost of goods sold for 1,000. Revenue is the same, 100,000. Cost of goods sold are different because of the different cost per product which we calculated, and as you see, gross profit is also different. Then I still have to include non-manufacturing costs. Yeah? But what happens with the cost this period? Either those costs become manufacturing or non-manufacturing. So in the first case, where my costs are calculated as direct materials only, 49,000 are accounted for as general administrative or operating costs. And that leaves company with profit of 1,000. In the second example, I also separated what is manufacturing, non-manufacturing. So non-manufacturing cost is 25,900 and profit is 7,600. It is different, yeah? And full costs also, as all the costs went to the cost of goods manufactured, there is no operating costs, and the profit is higher this time, yeah? Profit seems higher this time. These are just numbers, and also another thing what I had to do is, I also calculated those 400 units which stayed in the warehouse. What is their value? So value of my inventory is also different. By this example, where I want to finish my presentation today, yeah, I see your question. 1 second. I wanted to say that, accounting is not just boring numbers. It's about decision making. And whatever numbers you get, based on that, you will make decisions, and that, impacts the future of the company. Yes, please. Yeah, but inflation you are talking about is another story. So you add inflation on top of it, yeah? First of all, this method which I want to try to present, the middle one, I don't know how in Turkey and Lithuania it's required by law. So in general, it's not exactly, they cannot tell you exact number you put into cost, but at least principle, that's required, yeah? And the principle is working. Because, accounting comes from the practice. Many companies did their practices for many years. They analyzed, they looked what is working, what is not working, what works the best, and this is how it became a regulation or a requirement. So yes, it works. With the companies I advised, for majority of them it works. Another, I did not present not to have it very complex, but if it's interesting for you, I would also recommend you to look into variable and fixed cost approach, because that gives a little bit different perspective on decision making. But yeah, but it works, yeah. I think I saw some one hand, no, maybe not. Thank you for participating. It was my pleasure to see you. And you are welcome to Kaunas, to our university, if you wish to come for Erasmus. Thank you. Okay.
So thank you for the beautiful lecture that you have given. I am not from economics department, but I can clearly say that I now can understand why they sell a coffee for 50 liras, a coffee that I can make at home for maybe 10 liras, because there are additional costs. So now our dean will present you a certificate which is a symbol of our appreciation for your efforts and time. So, teacher, please welcome to the stage.
Professor Renata.
Yes.
Thank you for your
Thank you very much.
presentation.
Okay, I'll try.
Pleasure to see you at İstanbul Topkapı Üniversitesi. Let's take all together.
Okay.
Arkadaşlar hep birlikte bir fotoğraf çekin. Let's take a photo all together. Come. Professor, please. Evet, biraz çabuk.
Yeah.
Ön tarafa.
Can I remove this already?